Running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans. Welcome to Talking in Ovals. How's everybody doing out there on this Tuesday, December 17th, 2024 for any of our astute listeners and fans? Yes, we are a day late. We had an issue yesterday, but the day has been saved and you will find out why. But first, go through my little preamble. We appreciate everyone that's watching wherever you're watching from, whether it's on X, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube. Thank you. And if you're listening to this on podcast form, I have not been showing you love lately. Thank you so much. Wherever you are, if you're on X, give this a repost and follow us there. Facebook, share this and follow us on YouTube. Smash the like button, subscribe. And if you're on podcast form, please leave us a nice review and a comment there if you can, because those all help significantly. Comments help. We love those as well. And we just, overall, word of mouth. If you're a running fan, you're around any other running fans, you're a coach, you're an athlete, let everybody know, hey, Talking Novels. It's a pretty cool show. They talk a lot of running stuff. They talk to some great people, great topics. And that, again, that always helps so that more people can get eyes to us. So, and if you want to find us anywhere, just go search at Talking in Ovals. So last week, we had on Craig Siegel. He was a repeat guest. He has opened the Outpost Walking and Running Co. in Little Silver, New Jersey. Since we last talked to him, we had a really fun conversation about why he opened it, giving back to the community and everything that he's doing over there. So definitely go back and give it a listen. If you're in New Jersey, near the Little Silver area, please go support him. He's around in all the high schools. He was over with Hyatt over at Manasquan for a little bit. Speaking of Dave, he can't join us today. He had some other obligations and things like that. So it's just going to be me along with our guests, and let's bring him in because he is a repeat guest and he's someone that we always enjoy having on. He is an absolute wealth of knowledge. He is Phil Grove. He is a FloTrack announcer and PA MileSplit writer. Phil, what's going on, man?
Hey, Alex, how you doing? Just trying to get back to normal after a little bit of a cold, and also getting back to normal after the first trip to Boston this year.
Oh my God. Yeah. I understand that. It's going around everywhere. I had to take a week off from this show because I told you beforehand, I had a sinus infection that turned into walking pneumonia. I'm still surviving off cough drops. If anyone sees me pop another one in, I apologize, but so I'm not hacking up a lung while I'm on the show. But, overall, it's always great to have you on. I'm going to make this announcement because we haven't done it in a little bit, but now that indoors coming back up, there's no excuses to any of the coaches, any of the athletes. We want PRs. I have not been able to announce PRs in months now, and I'm kind of getting annoyed, people. I want your PRs. It doesn't matter how fast you are, how slow you are. I don't care if you are a young man and you break 30 for the first time in the 2, or if you are a young lady and you're breaking 70 for the first time, or you're running a 55, or you're a guy running a sub 50. Send them our way. We want to give them a shout out because we think that all PRs deserve to get shout outs because all the hard work and things you guys do are absolutely, necessary to give you guys some love. So, Phil, I want to jump right into it. Speaking of PR, speaking of great performances, cross country this year. It's always fun talking to you because Dave and I, we're New Jersey centric people. I'm a little more on the New York side too because I'm up here. But you're in PA. You're covering a lot of PA and Ohio stuff. What were your reactions this year to kind of XC in your area of, PA and Ohio, and also overall for what you saw collegiate, high school, and stuff like that?
Well, definitely in Pennsylvania in the West this year, the big question going into the season would be if North Allegheny girls could win for the seventh consecutive year in Pennsylvania.
Oof.
AAA, the biggest schools, John Neff's Tigers, again, they've had the bullseye on them and they have delivered time and time again. This year, one, because they lost a lot of talent to graduation, and two, some injuries that they lost part of the Kusler twins throughout the season. They had really led the Tigers a year ago to a fifth place national finish at
Yeah.
NXN, which was just an incredible achievement coming out of the Northeast and doing what they did. The Northeast teams don't always get the opportunity to finish so highly
Nope.
at the national meet, and they did that a year ago. This year, the Tigers, unfortunately, were not able to defend, but 6 consecutive years as the state
Wow.
champ in Pennsylvania. Just incredible. In the program, you talked about PRs and building, just excitement in the sport, and that's so important. And I know being up at BU, one thing that they do is they make certain that every person in every race, whether you're an age grouper coming in, you're a high schooler moving up, you're D1, D2, D3, JUCO, NAI, whoever you are, that you have an opportunity to perform at your best at the
Oh yeah.
conditioning level where you are. And as we knew, those cross country runners coming in, we're going to be at the highest level. And the everybody else who's maybe a 800 runner on down to the field events, we're just going to be cracking open the season. So I sort of look at it for the distance runners as the Daytona 500, because it really is, where they can go out there and just crank it out. Then they go back into the grind of the season,
Yep.
this being their training through the holidays coming out. They have a 2-week run, 2-week run or so going into the meat of the season starting, the teens of January.
Yep.
But going back to the top runners and surprises, Virginia Krause in Pennsylvania, she had dominated the small school division in PA, won 2 titles in a row. She moves up in classification, no pause at all. She goes out to Foot Locker Nationals, Balboa Park. I love that course. I was out there 3 years, really back in the heyday when Drew Hunter, Ed Cheserek, Grant Fisher
Oof. Those are names.
winning and dominating. Those guys were just unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that course really is an incredible challenge. I love double loop courses.
Yep.
It's one that you're almost always going to get a firm course underneath you, which is to me is so important. I know a lot of people like the muck that you get in Portland, but I like a fair course. You can go out there and say, hey, if you're good at hills, great. If you're not, you know what, this is a course, but everybody's going to have firm footing. You're going to go out there, the temps in the high 60s. Yeah, everybody just loves that, whether it's in December in California or May in Ohio or Pennsylvania.
And the double loop too, the one thing I like, it's good for the fans
Oh, sure.
because you get to see the athletes coming through multiple times. And, obviously, if you're an XC parent, an XC person, you're sprinting, you're running, you're trying to get to the points. Everyone knows the points. It's always fun to watch all the parents and stuff just kind of like sprint around to all the points and the coaches for things like that. But the double loop gives you kind of that opportunity to not have to like go as much. They're running their 5K and you're probably running 3K as a parent, right? And as a coach to get there. But with the double loop, kind of saves you a little bit, which is nice.
On the collegiate side, I'm going to jump across the state lines where I've been covering to Ohio. NC State's Grace Hartman. She was a standout in the state of Ohio for Oakwood
Yep.
for a number of years. Really led that program. Goes down to another Ohioan, Lori Gomez Hennis, the incredible coach down there who had led again. Talk about consecutive championships, 3 in a row for NC State coming into
Oof.
the season. But Hartman finished as the top American in the women's 6K at NC D1 in Wisconsin.
Wow.
She has the talent. She's in the program, but I really think even though there were some people who picked her maybe to be the top American, I was just incredibly impressed with that performance, having seen her a number of times on the district and regional level in Ohio as a prep. On the men's side, of course, Graham Blanks just to able to repeat, only the 13th male ever to do that in Division One. I saw the youngest doubler since Prefontaine, and in our sport, and in this time period, when you throw that name in the mix, I mean, you have to walk away as impressed as anybody could be.
And and you look at Graham and his body of work and things like that, and repeating, which is difficult, right? Like that's not something that's easy to do with the pressure on your back. But he's handling it too. And we'll jump into his performance in the BU opener real quick. Let's talk about it because going up to obviously he repeats in NCAA's, and he's in great shape, so he's gonna go run at BU. He's doing the 5K, and again, it's rare for somebody to continue to do what's expected of them. And Phil, he didn't just win the 5K. He outclassed everyone. It was dominance. What was it like being there, calling that race, watching Graham do what he did?
I mean, every race, especially 3K, 5K, the miles, when they set 52 sub fours a couple of years ago. And you asked me before we went on how many years I've been up there. I just took a look at my emails. My first one I did was back in February of 2020. So this will be
Wow.
the sixth winter that I've gone up to Boston. Not as many times as I'm doing now, but just introduced to that atmosphere. It's kind of like a hockey rink environment where you just have the rabid fans, the knowledgeable fans, those who just want the intensity, the drive, the performances to continue at the highest level. You have a team down a goal, and all of a sudden they're coming on, they're firing shots on net, and I mean that's everybody is just into it. They're right along
Yep.
the outside rail of the track. They're on the infield,
Which
and
I have
and
to give credit to BU. They are really, really good about allowing, athletes, coaches, and fans to be, especially for the distance races. And they're one of the rare places that highlights the distance races more than anything. Like there's a lot of good sprint performances. Again, we'll go over the BU opener, but they really highlight your mile, your 3K, and your 5K. And those are the premier things at BU, which is always nice. And they're really good about allowing teammates and stuff to be in the infield, to be around, the side, really cheering them on. And that's a credit to BU as a facility and also to all the officials for understanding just what BU is.
right, and they do have a new leadership in the track and field program. Got to mention that Grant Cartwright, who
Yes.
had been their throws coach, is now taking over the program. John Moles, coming up from Richmond, his first, let's say, baptism by fire as a meet director at BU. Just getting all of those entries in, making certain all the races are seated properly and also paced properly, because as I mentioned, when you go to BU, you want to make certain that again everything is set up for you. And
Hmm.
so important in that, as far as I'm concerned, and the athletes and coaches, is rapid. So whether
Yep.
BU brings those in, whether they have those individuals that they actually pay for their services once or twice during a day or a 2 day meet, or some of the college programs that say, hey, you know what? You're not ready to go out and run a full 3K, but you can go out there and run 1,000 meters or 2,000,
Yep.
and you're going to be the rabbit for your teammates in whether it's heat 3 or heat 6. One of the on-screen guests that we had was Ella Jackson, who had run at Boston College, a Canadian runner, stepping away from the collegiate program, and asked her, which the more difficult side, the mental side or the physical? And she, not surprisingly, said the mental, because
Which,
obviously you're not running the full distance, so you can go this pace. They're not having you or I out there pace a 3K or 5K at BU. They're having somebody who has a resume, has some pedigree behind them, and just to make certain you maintain one visual contact and also just sort of like emotional contact with the pack, and don't separate yourself too much, and then have them thinking, hey, where did my support mechanism go to get us on pace to hit those numbers?
so one thing, let's just jump into the BU opener because I feel like we're already in there. Let's do it. One thing that the BU opener has that, a good amount of meets and indoor have these events, but still rare. The 300 and the 600. What is it like calling those? Because obviously, as an announcer, as someone that's in the sport, the good times for men and women for your 100, your 200, your 60. Well, 100 is not indoor, but your 62 all your traditionals, right?
Right.
Has it taken you a little bit to kind of fully understand like what is a seriously good time in the 3 and the 6 for both the men and the women to kind of call it, or has it kind of come easy watching the great performances?
Well, I think that, definitely not as much in the December meet, in the Sharon Collier Danville season opener, but as we get into January and February, you'll start to see, those top collegians. They're gonna go there, not as let's say numerous as in the 3K, 5K mile, but you'll still get some top guys and top women. And as you mentioned, the 400-meter winner, was incredible. A young man, I believe, from the Air Force Academy,
God, yeah.
just threw down an incredible time.
A
Again, he's coming up. He's
46.73,
yeah,
Xander Cruz in
yeah,
Northern Colorado.
yeah. So okay, so he's coming off of altitude and he's coming down to sea level, a couple hundred feet, if that.
Yep.
And he takes advantage of that. Everybody talks so much about the distance runners going to Flagstaff, then coming back to North Carolina or Virginia or whatever, where they get the benefits a couple weeks later of
Hmm.
that altitude training. But yeah, I mean, BU, they run the meet right, they run it efficiently.
Yeah.
I think a little bit more of a focus with the new leadership in the program is sticking on a time schedule, so not everybody is going to be able to get into a meet, and they may take their lumps. I believe they told me in year one, but the coaches and athletes understand if I'm supposed to run at 115 and I'm running at 115 or 116, that's cool. But if all of a sudden I'm running at 140 because they've had to add more heats,
Yep.
because the meet is just so large. And it's really difficult to put your arms around just what the meet at BU brings to the table.
It's interesting because it's one of those things where I understand where they're coming from, that they want to make it more efficient. But it's one of those things that, if you go to BU, if you're at the Terrier, if you're at Valentine, if you're something like that, there's going to be like 30, 40 heats of the two. There's going to be so many, and and you're patient, right? You look at it, especially if you're one of the later races, like it's difficult. It is difficult to time your warm up, especially if you're running a mile, something like that, because there's a lot, right? There's always a lot of heats at those meets, but it's also one of those things that you come to expect. And one of the cool things is like everyone does get a chance to run, and there are so many fast runners that you're looking at it and you're seeing a 400, and it's like, okay, we're at heat 20. Oh crap, they're running 48s. Like as you're at that point, you're like, this isn't even like the cream of the crop, and they're running this fast. Like, so it is something that I hope they kind of wiggle room it a little bit, because it's something where even those middle heats in these bigger meets, like obviously the opener, not as many teams, right? But when it gets to those big classic meets, that those middle guys, those middle girls are still running PRs, are still running fast, they're still running your IC4A qualifiers in these middle heats. So it's really important that they kind of, I hope they look in the past, see the performance in the past, and understand just how important it is for a lot of these athletes in those maybe later middle heats.
Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely correct. And I mean, and one thing, obviously, whether you're John Moles, the meet director at Boston University, or meet director somewhere else, whether it's outdoors or indoors, when the coaches send in the entries, there's a little bit of skepticism that goes with that, especially the first meet
Oh,
of
for
the
sure.
year. It's like,
Yeah.
well, okay, he went 48.5 a year ago. The training is going well, but I don't think I can put him in a heat with some 46 or 47 guys. So
Yeah.
so there is that goes into
100%.
managing a major meet. And also, you talked about the timing of things. When you are at an indoor facility, whether it's at a expansive 300 oval, the huge oversized at Notre Dame, or,
Hmm.
or in Alaska where they have the indoor 400,
Yeah.
there's less space for you to warm up and do that. So they're out on the streets around the track and tennis center in Boston, getting the warm ups. Most likely, if you're potentially a sprinter, a 400 runner, obviously the 3K, 5K, and milers.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's a lot to be considered. And I, I don't envy the meet directors there. Obviously, if you're chosen to be a meet director at BU, you're good at what you do, right? They chose you because they knew you were going to run a good meet, and there's probably going to be some give and take, right? Like the meet director has a vision, they go through it. Year one, like they said, they might take their lumps. They might learn a few things too about, okay, this is how this, we maybe need to do a little bit different things as well. And it's BU in the end. There's going to be fast times. There's going to be great races. Now, let's go back to the opener. What were some of the performances that impressed you at the opener?
Well, and again, it goes back sort of to the pacing and those athletes that really set the table. I think that the race where things was just set up the best was in the men's 3,000 meters. I believe they were
Okay.
on 2:35 minutes, and then having four runners go under the old record, and the two teammates from NC North Carolina, Ethan Strand and Parker
Parker
Wolf.
Wolf.
I thought Wolf was going to hold on for the win, but Strand nipped him at the line. But
Which is crazy because Parker Wolf is a little more the known commodity. Obviously, if you're in the running community, you
oh
know who
yeah,
Ethan Strand is. But Parker Wolf was the one, especially early in XC, was getting a lot of love in the top 10 list and things like that. And it's like they, I think, put a lot of the country on notice. They definitely put Graham on notice a little bit, right? You have two
sure.
guys that are running that fast this early. Like, I'm excited to see when some of these guys all clash.
Yeah, I mean to crush the old record by 6 seconds.
Incredible.
And as I mentioned, Martin was under, Yassine was under,
Hmm.
four guys at 7:34 or faster. Obviously, the track hasn't lost any of the magic. The second year under the redo, everything is perfect. But that it isn't the track. It isn't the super shoes alone.
Hmm.
It is one, the atmosphere. It is two, the pacing. Obviously, they came off incredibly fit off a fantastic cross country season. Martin, I believe he said, "Hey, I'm a cross country runner now, going out." And a guy who was celebrated for what he did at the mile as a prep, and
Yep.
he goes out there at 6.2 miles in cross country, and what he finished 11th, right?
Incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible. So, you also mentioned too about the knowledgeable part of the fan base there and all the things going on with that. I feel like that does, like you said, has to have a part. It's not just the fitness, it's not just the shoes, it's not just everything. It's fans at BU understand what they're watching. So as they're watching Ethan and Parker and, like you said, Martin and things like that go, the fans understand that they're watching something that could be incredible. They're watching a potential record. Once they sit there and they're getting to like lap 6 and they're seeing that these guys are still in great shape, lap 7, and it's like, oh, okay, they're getting through the mile and they look awesome. Like, we could be seeing something really cool here. Did you feel the atmosphere start to perk up from the announcer spot as they started clipping off these laps?
oh, absolutely. I mean, we're right at the top of the stands, above the highest level of seats, basically at the run out area for the sprints. So just past the main start finish line. Yeah, I mean, you can see that, and you can see, as you said, the people gathering along the rail, outside the track, on the infield, coming up to the curb, on the back straight, right on top of the edge of lane 6.
Yep.
They are there, but it isn't, like. Let's say a WWE environment. I caught a clip of a match about the other night, and it isn't like you always have the announcer, PA or otherwise. They do chime in occasionally, but you hit the nail on the head. The fans realize from the splits, they're watching the clock, they're watching the Pacers come through. It's like, wow, this is crazy. They just went through in just over 4. Well, this is going to be something else. And then 2 years ago when we clicked off those 52 sub fours, it was like 10 in the first heat, 11 in the second. The fan base is incredible. 2 years ago, I was fortunate to have Bill Rogers of Boston and New York
Yep.
City Marathon fame as my sidekick for the 5Ks, because he and a couple of his marathon buddies wanted to see the newest crop of distance runners in America. Whether they're Americans or born overseas, they wanted to see in their town at Boston University how these people can crank out laps.
Can we please get some WWE style announcements out of you? I would absolutely love to see some WWE style announcements. Now, I want to go and I want to, when this goes back, because it's not helping me here, but I'll click on it. I want to share the screen here because FloTrack has a great clip of Strand and Wolf coming down the to the finish here, and I want to show it because it is awesome to see. And if you're a running fan, like, this is a junky stuff that you want to see. Watch them, if you could see right there. look at them battle. Like I don't have the sound on, but just that had to be just electric. Just watching those two sprint down the last 50 there.
Oh, absolutely. I think at one point I said, the record is long gone or something to that effect because I
Yeah,
knew
let's
that
turn on the
they had
sound. Let's see if
just.
we can hear you announcing. That's me. Yeah. Let's see what we got here.
That's John, my old boss, John Davin, who's now working
Oh,
out of Austin for FloTrack. He was down on the track doing a lot of social and such. But yeah, I mean, it was incredible to see those two again, teammates, uh,
incredible stuff.
hooked
Yeah.
up and just obliterated a record. But you see the other one on your screen there, Doris Limnole. That was a stunner that she was able to go under what Valby did.
Yes.
At first it'd be you to break the record. Then she went to NCAA indoors last
Yep.
year
I
and,
think we
and
have her
lowered
race
it.
right here.
And then with the closer there, 14:52:57. Yeah, she only got it by 2200s, but the fact that she got it was amazing. And you see her shadow right there, just pushing her all the way through that. 25 laps indoors on no matter how magical the track is not easy from a mental standpoint. These athletes are world class, so they can do those things. But just to stay in tune, to work around the traffic, because you can see they had lap runners all around them, so that plays a major factor. One, for
100%.
for Graham, I think he lost a couple tenths going into that last lap or two, where he had to go real wide on the back straight.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's
but
hard in indoor too, because if you're getting lapped in indoor, it's not like outdoor where you can go high. You don't want to get up on the bank.
right,
Nobody does, right? So it's like it's expected of the leaders to be the ones to go wide, where in outdoor, you're really expecting people to get wide because they have another 7, 6 lanes to work with.
right, true, yeah. And in addition to one of the pace setters, Ella Jackson, that we had a chance to talk with about pacing races, and she was rabbiting actually the third section of the women's mile, so it wasn't even the hot heat. But very fortunate to have Alex Gibby, the distance coach and cross country coach at Harvard. Graham's coach, stop up before Graham ran that number two all-time run
We'll watch his one
in
in
the
a second.
5K 12:59. Just about the expectations, both on Graham and on him. He's done incredible things, and he talked about Graham's maturity and how is just really the pace is quickened. And also, I had asked him about, he had been at William and Mary. He'd also been at the University of Michigan
Yep.
and now at Harvard. The differences in the programs, here you had the Colonial Conference, then the Big
Yeah.
Ten, and now the Ivy League. And he said, well, with the Ivy League, we have 4 years. We don't have the opportunity, to redshirt them, just to redshirt them, to get them
Hmm.
another year of fitness, of being an adult rather than a 17-year-old kid going up against 21-year-olds in a 5K as a freshman.
We'll watch Graham too coming in here, finishing off his 12:59. To go sub 13 in December, outrageous, right? And obviously he's coming off the high of XC and everything, but still, there's a lot of great athletes coming off that high of XC, right?
There's
Like
where
it's
you had
not
to go
Canada.
wide, yeah.
So just the way he is, like you said, he had to go wide there, but just he's running incredibly fast and he looks ridiculously composed.
Oh, right, yeah.
Like
Yeah, after he finished, you see so many athletes, sort of the carnage after it finished. Everybody's just lying down on the oval, on the outside lanes, just because they just went sub four or whatever.
yep,
But yeah, he cruised through. Not that he wasn't feeling his oats, but yeah, I
obviously.
mean, he ran incredible.
And when that's a difference, like I've always noticed, like the elite athletes can do exactly what he did. They finish, they start to walk it off. They look like they're fine. It's really ridiculous.
Right.
But it's like those are the next level guys. And if as Graham's trajectory keeps going, we're looking at one of the next great American runners. And it's not even a question as long as he continues his health. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into it. And where he goes post collegiate, right? Because that was an incredible run. And, where he goes post collegiate, whatever team he decides to join, we've now seen like how important teams are becoming, right? With what we see what Dathan's doing. Ritzenheim over there with the on running team and stuff like that. And there's a lot of good running teams joining. So I'm excited to see Graham's future. And I want to give a shout out. And I said this before the show. Northern Colorado, Phil. They, like you said, they come to this meet frequently, but man, they did not play this year on the men's and women's side. Um, were you getting tired of announcing how freaking fast they were? Because in the sprints, they were in the top three, top six of basically every single event.
Oh, absolutely. And normally, their top hurdler and sprinter, I think he only focused in the dash because they didn't have, I think, 2 rounds in the hurdles, just because, again, a limited number of entries.
Yep.
Yeah, no, they do come to town. Those teams that make the long trip from the West Coast, from Simon Fraser usually comes in a couple times a year from British Columbia, the D2 program. They're coming there seriously. These coaches, hey, we're making this big, expensive. This is our once or twice a year trip, guys. We're going to go there, and gals, we're going to go there, and we really need to be fit, and mentally as well as physically, which I'm certain they know they are.
Yeah, no, I just want to give them a shout out because I know, a lot of people when they're thinking collegiate running, Northern Colorado isn't one that really jumps into mind. But man, I was incredibly impressed. And, and you're looking over at the women's side, you have a freshman in Precious Naziker, a 7.53 this early in the dash. Like, that's a good team right there.
Oh,
They were impressed. I was impressed
absolutely.
by them.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just down up that men's 60. You had Jerome Campbell, who's
Yeah.
also, I think his specialty is more the hurdles and the dash. But they
Mhm.
went 3 of the top 4, and a fellow Rocky Mountain, Javin Bostic, right there in the middle, in between them, from the Air Force Academy. So yeah, I mean, they come there now. Again, since it is the track and tennis center, the surface on the infield, I think, is a little better than it had been prior to the redo. It's more, let's say, track like, obviously used as a
Which is
tennis
nice.
practice facility.
Yeah.
I've been up there when the nets are down, and they're hitting balls before the track and field guys and gals set up shop. But they get the long rolls of athletic tape to make the lanes markers. It's kind of funny to see, as the members of the BU track program prepping this facility with those in place curves, not hydraulic like you see at Penn State and other places. And I think that lends itself to some of the magic of maybe why it's just a little faster, because it's permanent. That they checked under the hood when they put the new surface on it, and everything, all the support mechanisms are in place, and it all measures out at 200 plus meters in a couple inches.
Yeah. So, how important was this resurfacing being successful at BU? Because for the longest time, they were easily the premier indoor track facility, right? Um, but there's been some more popping up. Obviously, New Balance is in town. In Boston, it's a gorgeous facility. You have Ocean Breeze over in Staten Island, which is another fantastic facility. New Mexico's always been down there. They use it for NCAA's. You talked about Penn State. Like, there's some other quality facilities, but BU is hanging on. BU is hanging on, as I think, maybe I'm biased and as a Northeasterner, but I think they're the premier facility in indoor right now. Still, how important was this resurfacing being successful and still keeping it at the level that it always has been?
Oh yeah, I mean, they didn't want to mess up a good thing. It obviously needed a new surface. It wasn't the worst I've seen, even in a major college. I remember back in the day when there was a track around the football field inside Ohio Stadium in Columbus, the Horseshoe,
Mhm.
and that was where all of the high schoolers, myself included, from the Buckeye State, that's where we wanted to go. That was where the state track and field championships were, at Ohio Stadium. And I remember really how worn and haggard the lane one was, because, okay, we're only going to do this redo every once in a while. And then they dropped the level of the field, added some more seats, and the track went away, and they built Jesse Owens outside. And Jesse Owens is a great venue.
Mhm.
And that just went through a redo this past year, because they had the move the state championships down to Dayton. But yeah, so they go, tracks go through this.
Yeah.
And sometimes there have been facilities I know some that they put the surface on and it just didn't turn out right. The technology, there are so many levels of track and field surfaces. You pay for the Cadillac or you pay for a very fuel efficient family car. What are you going to buy? Because what are your expectations for that facility? Do you have championship level meets that are going to be there? Do you want to set world records? Do you want to keep those world records like they have at Boston University? So it was extremely important. I know the athletes. I remember Craig Engels a year ago said, "Yeah, they didn't mess anything up. It's still the fastest place around, and people go to BU to run fast."
Yeah, definitely. And and I couldn't imagine being the company resurfacing
Mhm.
BU, because it's like, man, we can't mess this up. Like we have to, and obviously BU is going to pay for it, right? They know who they are. Sorry I didn't mention the Armory. I didn't mention you guys as
Right,
one of the
and
new
the
ones.
new facility
Armory is.
at Penn too. Sorry, I'm interested to see
Yes,
that.
yes. Yeah, in that facility, I saw some awesome pictures of it.
Mhm.
And, they're all popping up, right? So it's like, I'm happy BU is staying as BU, but I'm also happy that the success of BU, the success of Ocean Breeze is causing other schools, other people to go, hey, these indoor tracks are profitable. Let's make a really good facility that is for track and field, that track and field fans and athletes can sink their teeth into. I mean, it's only better for the sport now. We can only get that in the outdoor space.
Right.
Then, if Icon Stadium isn't the only pro ready stadium in the country, that would be nice.
Right. You did mention though, or reference it. Indoor track is a northeastern U.S. sport. That is where the base is. That's where the core is. That's where all the activity. Because who knows how much longer the winters will dictate
It's
that
cold.
you can't go outside in February and run your season opener because there's still a foot of snow, or like in northwestern PA, 3 feet of snow in one day.
I do think it's important though, and I think it would be frugal for some of these, southeastern country states and things like that. Like New Mexico's intelligent; they're really smart. Putting that track there, and people have said it's not the greatest indoor facility in the world. We've had some throwers on that. They were going to Olympic trials. They hated their pits over there, but they're the only one. They're the only one. Everyone goes there, and we're fortunate we had Zig Ziegler on, who's doing his indoor track, his 400 indoor track with the 200-meter inside of it, over in Vegas. So that's going to give some competition, hopefully, over there. But I do think it would be smart if Florida, Georgia, Alabama, one of these places, right, built something, because you have so many of these individuals who are fantastic runners down south that when they get to college, indoor is important in college. It is an absolute, everyone runs indoor. That is part of it because you want to get to the indoor national championships and stuff like that. It's important. And I think it would be important for the, southeastern places, some of the things more just down south, to get a few of them popping up there, and it would make money because you would be the only venue in town. And these high school coaches will realize, hey, I have a kid that's about to go D1. There's a good chance they end up going into the Northeast or the Great Lakes, and they're going to have to run indoor. Let's get them a few races under their belt. So, um, uh, do you think that would be something intelligent? Maybe we should jump in and go do that ourselves.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you have the backers, I would say definitely go ahead. But I mean, there is, and I can't remember exactly where it is in Florida, but one of the new indoor facilities down there.
Yes.
Texas also, A&M has obviously an incredible facility there. At the major universities, you're going to find these because despite the future of track and field at the D1 level, D2, D3 level, exactly where it's going to go. Schools continue to invest in their athletic programs to attract students, and with enrollment almost across the board at post-secondary, really taking a hit and trying to find their way. I know I was just in conversations with a four-year institution in my day job out here in southwestern PA, just about the enrollment figures and how just based on population and who's having children and when they're going to be 18 years old and potentially going to school, or
Yeah.
my day job is in workforce development. So will they go to college to get a 4-year degree? Will they go to
Mhm.
a tech school? Will they go straight into the workforce? Will they go into the military? Those were sort of the paths when I was an 18-year-old young man.
It's crazy to think too, because like as we're fans of the sport and we're watching it, it's kind of like we should strike now while the iron's hot, right? It looks like track has never been more popular in the country. Track athletes have never been more known since probably you're looking at like as an American, maybe like Bruce Jenner, when he was like the most well-known runner. Like, we've had moments with like Gail Devers and things like that, Michael Johnson, but I think we're having more household names now than we have ever. Like, Noah Lyles, obviously, people know who Sidney McLaughlin is and things like that. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, he's a name that people, because, they're more out there, they're noticeable. And it's crazy to think, obviously, schools are not looking at the next 1, 2, 3 years, they're looking at the next 10, 15, 20 years, right? Like they need to know what their outlook is going to be. But, it is crazy to me to think of, that this is the time to strike, especially if you're a program. And you had something interesting you told me before the show about a coaches convention in Orlando talking about some of the roster limits. So, what went on there that could possibly affect schools and things like that going forward?
Well, I know, the annual U.S. Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Convention in Orlando this week, I think from the 16th to the 19th. But the CEO of the association really, sort of put out, he believes, says, I want to focus on four critical words that will frame our discussion: threat, value, change, and exposure. So obviously, with the roster limitations that were announced by NCAA, basically the deal with the NIL and everything connected to that. And for a second on NIL, that has given some incredible young athletes. You're talking about the future of the sport.
Yeah.
A young man that I covered extensively in his senior year in high school, Drew Griffith from
Yes.
Butler, hammering sub fours all the time. But he was one who was able to connect, with the NIL resources that now are available. And I think running and track is a sport that maybe the dollars aren't equal to what maybe somebody is getting into, a football or basketball, obviously. But they're spreading the wealth around, and you're getting more and more of these athletes in track and field at a younger age, still in high school, getting NIL opportunities. And then when they go to college, a lot of that driven, by their social media presence. I
Yep.
got that firsthand, where if you have a bigger social media following, you might get some NIL money from
Which is
the
insane.
company that is your college's basically apparel sponsor.
And I think that it is a good opportunity too, because, obviously a lot of the shoe companies drive a lot of the deals for these athletes, right? And it's now giving the shoe companies an opportunity to kind of get a head start with them in a lot of ways, where they could start to build that relationship from a high school, from a college level, and they could start to throw them some money. And now it's not illegal, right? Now it's not, hey, we're going to throw you money, you have to become a pro. It
Right.
is, no, we're going to throw you a little money now, and, it's a good way to see, can you handle the pressure? You're going to continue to be a great collegiate athlete. And for me, it may allow some of these college kids to not have to jump into the pros as quickly as they used to, right? You have a great high school, you have a great freshman year. There was a lot of pressure to be like, oh, if the Olympic trials were that year and you made it as a freshman or, a sophomore, look at Abby Steiner, right? She didn't finish up, I believe, her collegiate eligibility. She jumped in because the NIL wasn't as prevalent. Someone like her, who was extremely popular over at, I believe, what was she at, Kentucky?
Yes.
Extremely popular at Kentucky. She possibly would have stayed in school because she was huge. Everyone knew who she was. She would have gotten a nice NIL deal out of the whole entire thing. But instead, she chose to jump in. She had the trial. She did everything. And she's obviously a pro. Whenever she's in a race, she's a threat to win, right? But it's giving some of these great athletes an opportunity to not have to feel that pressure of, I had a great year, I have to go pro. Where it's like, no, I might be making more right now in the NIL than maybe if I go pro prematurely and that deal doesn't come that I wanted to. We know the story of how many pros, how many people at the Olympic trials didn't have any deals. There's a
Right.
ton of them that just don't have deals. So the NIL, I think, especially for track, is a great opportunity. And a lot of your Olympic sports, it's a great opportunity for these young athletes to start getting paid.
Yeah, and the NIL collectives that each of these schools have, and how much money they're able to bring in, that only decades ago, maybe one or two, it was more like what rich or influential booster is going to drop
Boosters.
some money. Yeah, booster in the football program or otherwise.
Yep.
Yes, there were obviously individuals who had access to resources, from a great business career, that they came back to their alma mater and they said, you know what, put my name on the outdoor track facility. We'll put a new facility in, new bleachers, things of that nature, a new throws venue. Yeah, they did that, not as often, obviously, as the major chunks of money that went to football. But you mentioned Abby Steiner. Her story was incredible. She blew out her knee playing soccer, her other sport that she was almost equally as adept at as
Yep.
she is an incredible sprinter. Covered her career in Dublin Kaufman in Ohio, and comes back. And I remember I was at her first race after she missed all that time due to the soccer injury. Came back. Her first race back was indoors up at Spire, one of to me one of the great indoor venues. 300 meters, 8-lane oval, 10-lane straightaway, 5,000
That's awesome.
seating, dual pits, just incredible. But it's up in the snow belt, so it really is at the mercy of Mother Nature. But yeah, I mean, Abby's a very approachable young lady, has a great social following, as you mentioned, is an incredible sprinter. So just a couple years removed, that NIL money just really wasn't there the way it is now.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, she's someone, and I think we've seen, definitely a few pros now that could have benefited from that, right? Like, especially with their personalities and things like that. But now it's a good opportunity for the current young athletes and for a lot of the schools to kind of tap into a lot of the connections around regionally, right? So I think there could be good things that come from this. I know people talk about how all like the big schools. Obviously, Oregon is going to have a ton of NIL money, right? You're an athlete at Oregon, a distance runner over at Northern Arizona, you're going to have NIL money. Like that's kind of, and there's a few of these schools. Hopefully BYU, it starts flooding in because man,
Mm.
what BYU did men and women's side in cross
Oh,
country
incredible.
is very few schools that pulled off the double. They're now in history as one of the greatest. So the NIL could be a good thing. So speaking of good things, you told me I'm a bad track fan. The Bowerman Awards, they're going. Are they currently going on? Did they happen? Give me some info on that.
The 19th coming up. So the finalists for the Bowerman, on the women's side, of course, you have Parker Valby.
Yes.
You have Jada Ross, and last but not least, who's the third one? Oh yeah, Maya Ramsden from Harvard.
Yeah.
Uh, so those are the three finals. I believe that is on the 19th is when those awards are given out. So on the women's side, I'll just you know drum roll, please. Parker Valby. How can it not be her, doubling both indoors and outdoors the way she did it, and just looked so much at ease in those races, when she set the previous 5,000 record, 1450 something, at BU and then at New Balance, but just dominated distance running in the collegiate scene. So that's my choice. Yours?
I think Parker is the obvious choice, and I think it's one of those two where if you're choosing, it'll be hard to choose against her. Obviously, popularity comes in as a big play. Like we just watched, if you want to switch up sports, the Heisman, right?
Right.
And Travis Hunter. It's controversial, but honestly, I don't think you would have been wrong giving it to either of the young men, Ashton Genty or Travis Hunter.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of pressure there that comes with deciding this, and Travis Hunter is obviously deserving. He's one of the greatest athletes we've seen in college football. But if Ashton Genty got it for having potentially going to be the greatest season of all time, second greatest season ever, but Parker, I think, is going to put that pressure due to her popularity. Obviously she was an Olympian and things like that. So it's hard to deny her. But you look at Maya Ramsden of Harvard. What an incredible accomplishment. She's the first Harvard athlete, and the first from an Ivy League to be named a finalist. Indoor mile champion, outdoor 1,500-meter champion. She has a DMR record. Like she has a lot of good accolades herself. Jada Ross from Oregon, obviously being a big name from Oregon. Shot put champion, outdoor, indoor runner up. So three very worthy athletes. But yeah, I think it's going to be Parker because everything was about Parker last year. Like if we're going to be honest, Parker Valby was the it girl and she deserves it.
Yes.
All right. So
All right.
what do we got for the gentleman?
The gentleman, Christopher Morales Williams from Georgia, the sprinter, Caleb Dean from Texas Tech, and my favorite, Leo Neubauer
Yeah.
from Texas, the multi-event machine, approaching 9,000 points, winning both the indoor multi and the deck outside. Yeah, it just an incredible young talent, the young German that I believe is going to be the men's Bowerman winner.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's impressive. We have to figure out a way if he can, become an American instead and not compete for Germany. But no, he's like you said, to do what he did. Um, and I'm reading here, he's the first back-to-back men's finalist since Grant Holloway in 2019. So it's tough to deny that and just how good that is. And if you look at it too, he's the Big 12 outdoor long jump champion, indoor long jump champion in the Big 12. So I mean, number 5 decathlon mark in NCAA history, undefeated in combined events this year. Like, yeah, I think he's another one where he's the easy choice.
Hmm.
Obviously 6 worthy athletes there, but there's almost 2 obvious athletes. So I'm with you on both of those. So we'll see.
Uh,
We'll see if we're wrong or right too, because you never
yeah,
know how these come out.
absolutely, and I think something else you put down on your itinerary. What about this Grand Slam League? What do you think about it?
I'm excited for it. It's obviously it has 4 venues. Let me go and make sure I get the venues right because I believe Grand Slam League venues. That's the fun part about doing this live now, Phil. People get to get the insight in here. All right, so they give me the stadiums, but they don't tell me. Give me the where is it? Don't tell me. All right, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there eventually. Boo boo boo.
Yeah, well, you got I see it Franklin Field, Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
the National Stadium in Kingston, and then Anston Sports Complex, suburban Miami, and Drake Stadium in UCLA.
And yep, so it's opening up. Yep, I have it right here. Opening up April 4th through 6th in Jamaica. Then May 2nd to 4th in Florida. Um, like you said, Franklin Field, which I think is freaking awesome. May 30th and June 1st. And then it's closing out Drake Stadium over in California, which is also awesome because you have a few legendary spots there between Franklin and Drake. Um, I love it. I think it gives so many athletes, now for the longest time, it was always get good, become a pro, and hopefully you get good enough to become, get part of the platinum or the gold or the silver and the continental tour and things like that. But this seems to be kind of bypassing all those. This is not, Diamond League, which really, I don't know if these 4 meets are participating in the world rankings. I don't know how they're fitting into it.
Mm.
I haven't read that much into it because if that's fitting into the world rankings and the what you call it, the not the IOC but the IAAF the and USATF kind of gets to determine a lot of who is allowed to be in and who isn't. But the difference is there's a roster over with Grand Slam track. And that roster is decided by Grand Slam. It has nothing, I don't know how much it has to do with the, the other outside spots. It's kind of what I've been calling for forever, where it's a promotion more than just you know, a meet that's involved. So really quickly, let's go to some of the racers because I don't think it's fully finalized. But I think this is in the order of how they accepted too. So you have Sidney McLaughlin, Lavoni, Josh Kerr, Cole Hocker, Yara Nagoose, Fred Curley, Kenny Bednarek, Melissa Jefferson, Masai Russell, Serena Sama Miela, Jasmine Camacho Quinn, Allison Dos Santos, Muzala Samakanga, um, Clement Ducos, Matthew Hudson Smith, Quincy Hall, just amazing names already. Nikki Hiltz, Grant Fisher, Ronald Quemoy, Akira Nugent, Roshan Clark, Shamir Little, and I think it's going to be capped at 30 if I'm not mistaken. So you could just keep looking. Jessica Hull, Luis Grivalja, Marioletta Paulino, Marco Rapp, and I'm just going to keep scrolling here. But what I like about this, Phil, is this year is going to happen. I don't know if there's a massive contract. Shout out to Elise Cranny, coming back from pregnancy, being an Olympian, now in the Grand Slam. Freaking awesome. Um, but I really, Gabby Thomas is there. I don't know if this is going to become fluent or not. But what I see with this is number one, it's kind of working. Like I said, it seems to be working kind of outside of the norm of how things are done, which I like. And number two, Graham Blanks has something to aim for, right?
Right.
You look at Graham Blanks, you look at a lot of these collegiate athletes and maybe some of the pros that weren't invited now, chip on their shoulder, right? And that's one thing I love about it. And I think just making it that's going to be 4 races, this roster is what you are going to see in all 4 meets. I think that makes it so good for promotion, so good for the allure, for the rivalries. I love everything about it so far. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that obviously has rubbed a number of people the wrong way, and at least let's say 50% of the track and field population, is the fact that it is not track and field; it's just
Nope,
track,
just track.
just track. But I mean, the growth potential is there. Michael Johnson obviously has been very vocal in recent years. Questioning how those in charge, whether it's USATF, IAAF/World Athletics, what they're trying to do and some of the innovative things. And I don't think the long jump box or whatever they
Well,
called it
that's
is.
going to go away, hopefully.
Gee, that is just, it's like, excuse me. It's like, no, what makes it, you need the technique, you need to refine. It's not just running down and throwing a foot on the ground and then flying. That's
And
not.
all fans will asterisk every single record that would happen in that. And that's unfair to the athletes, right? That work
Absolutely.
their ass off to get there. But we would, because it's like, okay, you didn't have to aim for a box, you have a zone, which
Right.
is a huge difference.
Yeah, yeah, it's but I think there's great growth potential. Obviously, building with a core group of athletes. To me, the one meet that is the key would be the one at Franklin Field. I mean, there is nothing like being at the Penn Relays where you have 30,000 people just all in unison. Again, knowledgeable, passionate, and dialed into what's happening. That hopefully Mother Nature smiles on Philadelphia at the end of May, beginning of June,
Yeah.
weather, and the people come out and watch, and the performances are great. Because I think if that's a hit, then this has some potential to grow and to prosper for a while.
One of the things that I feel like is very important as well is how packed are those stadiums?
Mhm.
You need to fill them all out because you look at the Diamond League, they're packed. Every single meet is packed. It's an event. And these are not going to be 1 day events. You see it, it's a few days each, right? So are they going to be packed every day? Because unfortunately, Worlds over in Oregon was not packed every single day.
Right,
The viewership was pretty good, but the stadium itself, while America did great, the athletes did well. We had one of the best world teams ever carried into the Olympics, right? But it was not where you want it to be in terms of an event of that stature. So this is going to be important that all 4 meets. Now, I have no doubt Kingston is going to go wild. And I think it is so smart to open up, especially when you have Oblique Seville on that roster. Obliques is going to, people are going to want to watch some of the, Islander, Jamaican, different athletes that they have on there perform. And I think it's a smart place to start because they're going to be going wild. They love track and field over in Jamaica, the national stadium there. To bring a meet of that stature there and the stars is going to be incredible. And all the athletes are going to want to get up and run that, right? Noticeable
absolutely.
name missing there. I didn't see Jakob Ingebrigtsen.
Right.
Is Would we be able to call this league complete if Jakob isn't there to compete again against Kerr, Cole, Yared,
Mhm.
and some of the others?
Well, I mean, they're going to have to be, let's say, feature or focused events. Not everything is going to get, let's say, equal billing. It just, I don't think that will drive it. You could have the 1500, being the feature event at Franklin Field, and then the 400 hurdles elsewhere. But it's going to have to sort of move and shake, whether, however this plays out on television or live stream or whatever. But yeah, that is a key component of it, to have those rivalries that he got me in Jamaica, but I'm going to get him in Philadelphia.
Yeah, 100%. Now, One of the things that we did get an insight on, I believe it was maybe last episode, no, a few episodes ago. I don't know if it's been fixed, but Darren Peters, who comments often, we love Darren. He's one of our viewers that we is always on. He's a USATF official and things like that. He commented saying that they were having trouble finding a TV deal.
Hmm.
How important is it that this gets a TV deal and like a real one, not go subscribe to Hulu, but that it's on cable, that not cable, just broadcast like ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS, one of those where everyone and anyone can have access to it.
But right, and as a former, let's say mainstream media guy, started my work career as a newspaper sports writer for
Yeah.
journalism career for almost 20 years. Yes, it is extremely important. And if you look at some of the variety of listings and programs on the sports channels, you'll see, again, nothing against cornhole tournaments or things of that nature. If they can get on a
ESPN.
purely visible cable network, sports network, why can't a track meet, a tightly run track meet, just like we talked earlier about BU, they keep on in a tremendous schedule, and
Yep.
yeah, they may have 40 heats of the 200, but they're clicking them off as soon as that first race is over. They go to the next one. So obviously, having work in and around live stream and network productions of major track events like the Penn Relays, they're on the time schedule. They have those 2 minutes built in for that pre-race commentary and spotlighting the stars, and let's go get it.
My only other thing would be that if they do really have that trouble getting a TV deal, turn to the streaming side, right? Turn to YouTube, turn to Twitch, turn to X, and see if you can get some sort of deal, because you can do the same professional setup. You can do a very similar, if not almost exact thing. But the big key would be, number one, promoting it where you are, how to access it, make it free, right? Because the views will be what gets the money, right? Because then if you could sit there and if you get in Jamaica, I don't know what's a good number, if you get 100,000 views, right? Across platforms, now people are going to turn and say, maybe we want to sponsor this. We're going to get somewhere with it. And I also think it would be imperative that it's not just the Grand Slam promoting it. They're doing a great job on social media with their little interviews and stuff like that, talking to all the athletes, having them speak. But it needs to be on every single athlete to also say, hey, this is where I'm going to be. This is how you can see me. And to blast it out to their thousands and thousands of fans as well. Because, one thing we talk about on the show all the time is I hate having to search for my meets. I hate it. I hate having to sit there and not know where it's going to be. Like, I know you commentate for FloTrack. I'm not a fan of the fact that FloTrack's paid, but at least I know that if I'm a subscriber, I can go watch all the meets that FloTrack is going to have on their website,
But
bar none. I know where it's going to be. So that's one of the things, the mystery of track and field always bites it in the ass, because there's some meets you have no idea that they're going on or where they're going on, because the promotion is terrible and you have no idea when it's going to be there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, track mainly is still, sadly, let's say, a non-revenue sport. A lot of major conferences, with Title IX and other factors, especially on the men's side, have lost a lot of programs through the years.
Yeah.
Conferences that used to be just beasts only a couple of decades ago on the national level now don't have enough teams almost to hold a season championship.
It's very sad to see. And, hopefully this leak can kind of light a spark in sponsorships, right? And maybe that viewers, and again, it's imperative on people like me, like you, like Dave here, to sit there and when these meets are on, kind of force people to watch them, right? Like sit down, put it on TV. And if I don't care if you're at a family gathering, I want to change it. No, I'm watching the meet, right? Because there's always that uncle that wants to watch the football game at Thanksgiving. And it doesn't matter who wants to watch it. Uncle has it on or grandpa has it on, right? We have to become those crotchety fans that it doesn't matter what's going on around, we're watching it. Like I like golf. If golf's on, we put it on at the family gatherings. It's me and a few of the guys that like watching it. If people can enjoy golf, if people can enjoy NASCAR, which I also enjoy, people can absolutely enjoy track and field for 3 days. There's no reason they can't,
Sure.
because all those sports are quote unquote as boring. Even baseball, America's pastime. You have a crappy game going on, baseball's boring, right? It can be a very boring sport, but people watch every single game religiously. There's no reason track and field can't be popular.
Now, and I can tell you that a 25 lap race at Boston University, 5,000 meters, no matter if it's heat one or heat two, there are so many storylines going on within a race, and it's the job of myself and others who get the pleasure of calling those races, whether it's on network TV or live stream. That that it's look what's going on back there in fifth and sixth places.
Yeah.
He has moved up. She has moved up from 12th just in the last two laps. She realizes this is her go time. Yeah, so many great things that when they do cut away in the Olympic trials in the 10,000, they're 3,000 meters in, and all of a sudden they come back and they're 6,000 meters in. I'm like, no, don't do that.
And that's one of the things I think NBC has gotten better at, though, at least picture in picture. They'll
Right.
show their
Oh yeah.
sponsors and they'll picture in picture, and that's okay, right? I can still watch the race. And one of the things they do have to get better at, what you were talking about, is fifth place, sixth place, seventh place. Let's not only show the top, right? Pan. We could talk about the top
Mhm.
more, but pan to the other athletes because there are races within races going on, like you said.
Yep.
And these people that, especially at these high level meets where you have different countries coming in, yeah, they might not be up with Ingebrigtsen and Kerr, Yared, but they might be fighting for their national record from their small country, right? So it's like that is something that, especially if you're a knowledgeable announcer like you are, you have so many athletes to deal with. You probably do as much of your homework as you possibly can to know as many athletes there. But we had John Anderson on here. John Anderson is fantastic. He is so knowledgeable, and he's one of those guys that could take something like that and know it. But we need to do a better job as a sport. I'd imagine John wants to do those things, but he can only go with what the network's telling him to do. He can only go with where the camera is watching, right? So there's only so much you can do as an announcer. But like you said, we could make track so much more interesting than we do, right?
Oh,
It's on
absolutely.
all of us as well.
Yeah, and to your point at the beginning of the show about sending you their PRs. I mean, especially working the BU meets, since you get those D2 teams, you get the Adams State, you get the Colorado School of Mines, the Ore Diggers. They're out there just beating up national records, and to give
Yeah,
them the love they deserve for those performances.
absolutely. So the last thing I want to ask you, and I didn't realize that Tom Figueroa of what you call it, we have a buddy over there, Red Arrow Track Club. Um, he sent me PRs on the 7th. I didn't get them, so I didn't talk about them last week. So I'll do them at the end of the show here. But the one thing I want to ask you is, have you been impressed with how the American athletes, not just the ones that participate in the Olympics, but the American athletes all around, have responded to how well the Olympic team did, in terms of the performances, to XC continuing to be great, and now an indoor. Have you been impressed with watching how the Americans have responded from a great team performance and kind of trickling down throughout everybody?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think that was sort of imperative after the 2020 Olympic cycle had to be changed because of the global pandemic. Everything was thrown off a year. Now you're on only a 3 year gap between the last Olympics and this one, even though they call them the 2020. They were in 2021, folks. Everything got changed. Everything changed in this world because of what happened with that pandemic. But yeah, I think it really was imperative to get everybody back on the standard cycle of 4 years, thinking, hopefully not forgetting about track for 4 years,
Yeah,
but following up. And I myself personally had talked to so many other athletes at top level going to Europe, and I was following them a lot more, participating in some of the events that I caught online from in Germany in September. They have like meets every day, it seems like, over there,
crazy.
as you said, with stadiums full of fans that just can't wait to see these athletes from all the countries around the world come together.
And you know what? I'm guilty of it. I need to be better about making efforts to go to meets. Like, I could go to the Monmouth Mile and show it more love. Like, I didn't go to the Athlos event in my backyard over at Icon Stadium, which a Marist alum helped put on. Like, I suck too. Don't get me wrong. I'm just as bad as everybody else. But, it's on all of us. So I want to do real quick before we jump out of here, because they do deserve some love. Red Arrow Track Club. We have Michiganders that listen to us, which we freaking love. Over here, really quick, we have Naya Dibke, who is a regular. She ran in the 60 as 7.94. We have Sadie Abel, who's a 12th grader. So is Naya in the 800 to 245.05. We have Audrey Klein, a ninth grader, in the 1600, ran a 541.15. Very nice. We have Leah Garrity, a ninth grader, in the 60, ran a 877. In the 200 to 29.24. We have Tala Carlin, an eighth grader, in the 200, the 800, ran a 237.03. 1600, a 538.61. And rounding out the ladies, Vittoria, I'm going to butcher your name, Perichetti, eighth grader, ran a 547 1600 as well. So awesome job for all the ladies there. And now let's jump to the gentlemen. Christopher Sanchez, an 11th grader, ran an 867 60 meter dash. And then in the shot put, 31 feet, 5.75 inches. So that's awesome for him as well. Henry Robinson, an 11th grader, ran a 7.6 60 meter. Matthew Laporte, a ninth grader, ran a 216.67 800. Henry Perrin, an eighth grader, ran a 233.47 800, a 525.84 16. Catamon Klein, a seventh grader, ran a 605.34. And then Blaine Klein, a second grader, that's freaking awesome, ran a 656.82. So all around, sorry that I missed you guys last week, Tom. The messenger didn't show to me, but I wanted to give you guys love because you're sending us the PRs and you guys deserve it. Next time I'll do it at the top of the show. So hope you listen this long, but we appreciate it. And also, Phil, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's always a good time.
Thanks for reaching out, Alex. I'll be back in the middle of January, back to BU for about 4 or 5 weekends, ending up with the Terrier DMR Challenge, the top distance medley relay collegiate squads in the country coming together with a rabbit leading them through, I think, the first 1,000 meters of the 1,200. It's incredible, a very tight network window type of meet, a couple hours with some last chance races thrown in. So looking forward to another great winter in Boston, Alex. Thanks a lot.
Oh, we'll definitely be bugging you after the Terrier and the Valentine. You will be jumping back on probably after both of those because I have a huge affinity for those races because we went at Maris every year. We went to the Terrier and the Valentine. So I have a huge affinity for that, but we will definitely be having you back on, especially because, the Valentine always promises to have world-class performances, especially over the last few years. We'll definitely see Graham Blanks back at all those, and hopefully Hapsam Samuel will come there because he ran with one shoe for XC Nats and took second. So I'm curious what he could do with two spikes on the track now, because obviously he was fantastic last year, coming into his own this year. So really excited for that. But Phil, thank you so much for coming on. If you want to follow Phil on X, it's at Old School Track. If you want to follow him on Instagram, it's Old School Track XC. You have to add that at the end. And if you want to follow us, it's at Talking in Ovals. We appreciate everyone that watched, whether it was on X, Facebook, YouTube. Doesn't matter. Show us some love everywhere there. If you're listening in podcast form, give us a review, like I said at the top. And we'll be back next week. Hopefully Dave will be with us because I miss Dave. Dave is the partner in crime, and it's not right without him, damn it. But once again, we appreciate everyone for watching. We